Great. Hi, team, folks. Very happy to be presenting some of the insights in getting your go-to-market strategy right. My name is Guru, and I lead VPA. I'm revenue and growth at JustCall. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our chapter of how to get your GTM right. So I want to start off with the first point. Is This is a very common phrase used in all B2B SaaS companies. It's very tough to build products, but the truth of the matter is distribution actually wins product, right? Because distribution matters more than product, right? So that's something to take, but we want to go one step above that in your go to market motion and build something. So we have a theory which says perception is greater than discovery, which is greater than distribution and product. What it means is it's tough to build product. Distribution wins product all the time. And then discovery, without discovery, distribution gets very difficult. And to get discovery by customers, you need to get perception. So perception, what exactly is perception, right? And that's kind of like leads to our first chapter. Now, this is applicable for even first time founders here, just with one person, working on a garage, head of sales, head of support. It doesn't matter who you are in the go to market motion. It matters to everybody. As you start and as you keep building your product and go to market motions, the internal perception is actually the very strongest. You have a very clear idea on like, oh, this is what I think we are selling, this is what we stand for, this is what we market. But there's a quote: customers rarely buy what we sell, right? So you have to align internal perception with external perception. And that's a very, very important phrase. You have to get the outside in perspective in to understand, okay, what do people think about a product? What do customers think? And that is what is at the heart of our first chapter, which we're calling it listening. We have a go-to-market deep dive series. We're going to be talking about multiple points here. But as of today, just focus on the first chapter, which is listening. Now, to get your go-to-market right, there are only two things that I think matters, right? Learning and speed. Because you have to keep trying different things. What worked for you like yesterday is not going to work today. You're going to keep trying. You're going to keep learning. You're going to do it faster. Now, you can't go all in. So you're having a bunch of experiments, right? You're testing your go-to-market strategy. You're testing even it's an inbound motion, outbound motion, an email copy, even in one email, right? A LinkedIn message, everything you got to be testing. So you want to test your go-to-market strategy with real clients, right? No more assumptions. We live in a space where you have to test it real time. And how do you take what's working and scale it? And that is at the core of any successful go-to-market motion. Now, why should you make listening part of your go-to-market motion? There is a certain cost of all these tools to get the listening inbuilt into your go-to-market motion. But I'm here to tell you, making listening active part of your go-to-market motion reduces your customer retention cost by 25%. Why is listening so important? And people might think like, I think we've already spoken to our customers, right? What are we missing here? What you're missing is you have to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? Every time you got to hear it at scale. You want to look at what are the red flags about and what are the issues the customers are talking to you with your CX team or even sales team for that matter. And then you have to challenge your go-to-market assumptions, whether it is messaging, branding, positioning. What are you articulating as value of your product? And then using this, you got to start building better CX models, because customer experience goes from a point where they don't know we exist to becoming an evangelist. So in this entire journey, you got to keep listening to your customers. And most important thing in this thing is you need to listen to what customers are asking you. You want to have a latent understanding of their needs, the preferences, and the patterns which evolve. And that is precisely the reason why listening should be part. And for all the GTM team members, don't think it's a marketing's job or a product marketing job. No, it's for every person in that go-to-market motion. Now, the next question which our customers tell us is like, where should I listen to my customers? Where should I go? There are so many channels you're already leveraging, right? You have business calls, emails, social media posts, comments, text. These are all there. But I feel when you're starting out and when you're testing out something, right, even 5, 10 calls or 100 calls makes a lot of difference. And that's why what you talk to a customer in real time matters a lot more. And now I'm not here to demean any other channel, but this has a lot of weight, because when you hear somebody say, that carries a lot of heft, because it doesn't capture, like an email doesn't capture a context of what somebody's trying to tell over a phone call. You can hear the voice, you can hear the pauses, you can hear what people are not telling you. So that's why it's an important source. Now, why do conventional surveys and scores fail? Because these don't capture context. These kind of like, goad the customer into selecting some option which doesn't actually reveal what they're actually asking you. So, and that is why we kind of believe listening should happen in phone calls, in when the customer's tone, voice, all matters. Now, this is a space where, like, you must have heard, or this is maybe new to you, talking about conversational intelligence. But why? What all can you mine from a good sales call? There are so many things, right? You can start off by asking, like, what is the brand recall for a customer? You can test, like, if a customer knows your brand, is there an aha moment when they hear about your brand? They know, oh, I've heard about you, I've seen it there. Always ask for the channel, the source, because marketing is a dark funnel, right? So you want to know where, which part of your marketing funnel is making an impact for this customer to come to you, and which is creating a recall. Now, that's an important part, but not as important as the next two things, which is, you have to always test your messaging. You have to ask, is this messaging exactly conveying the value that you want? And also, you have to ask the customer to describe the pain point in their language. And it might not tally, because the customer never buys what we sell, right? They have their own way. They will describe their pain problem in a very different language than your messaging. So you got to align them. And there are other common things like, okay, what are the objections that you have? What are the key moments or deal drivers that is kind of taking the deal forward? What is the pain point that you've come to talk to me regarding? So all this is some of the big insights that you can glean into in every call. And that's kind of the bigger territory called conversational intelligence. We'll dive deeper into it. And this is the point where I want to talk to you a little bit about uh, why you need a tech stack for it, right? You can just have one person talk to 10 customers and tell you, hey, this is what I think my customers told me. You have to do this at scale, with remote working, with different people coming in and going, right? You have to have a platform which can record calls, decode them automatically without some person having to go through them manually. You need to have the engine bake up all kinds of insights, alerts, give you sentiments. So we'll kind of delve into it, and how you can make listening a key part of your customer experience, be it sales, marketing, support, success, account management, any team, because it needs to be a collective brain. Now, top of the mind, right? What will listening real help me, and what will the tech stack do it? First is calls, which I've already talked about, which can be real time transcripts during a call, post call. So you got to choose a platform which gives you both, because post call is great for learning, but not for improving the current call. So you have to have the privilege of having both. Everything is recorded, and now AI scoring is something which you can have sophisticated AI or minimal. You have to decide what you want. You want a tool at the bare minimum to give you pattern recognition, to tell you, okay, are they sticking to a particular script? Are these phrases being occurred? You have to find patterns which influence a sale, influence a good customer support call, influence a success call, right? Basically improve the CX engine. And there should be a lot of elements and drivers regarding moment analysis, sentiment, regarding the tone of the customer, regarding words like pricing, regarding words like discount, right? Uttering a competitor's name. All this needs to be prioritized both during and post call. Now, you have to have at the bare minimum all these things to do, to have listening as a strong strength within the go to market motion of your company. So I've talked about the tech stack. I've talked about why a go-to-market motion should have listening, right? Now let's talk about, okay, how to leverage them. What can I really improve? after having all this, right? Now, if you have moment analysis, sentiment analysis, if you're listening to customers' calls, it's going to continually improve your messaging. That's the first place you need to start. You need to understand which part of the messaging is resonating with my customers and how are the customers describing it in their language, right? You got to match them. You have to figure out, just like product market fit, which you already have, you have to go for like, messaging fit, right? Channel messaging fit, market fit. You have to know which messaging is articulating the value my customers want, and that is a very, very significant portion of getting this engine right. Second aspect is obviously going deep into which channels are working, the effectiveness of marketing, the ROI of marketing, which channels have contributing to a strong recall, is a particular ICPs. You might have particular ICPs in your target segment, are getting influenced by a particular campaign, which is contributing to a greater recall. All this kind of helps your marketing ROI and also down the funnel in sales. For the product point of view, this is a, and for even support, handling objections, knowing where a competitor stands ahead of you, or knowing where you stand below your competitor in terms of what's the gap, what are the issues. All these can be piped into the product team real time, and that's intelligence, because you don't have time to go to market research. This is where you're going to glean that listening. And lastly, but most importantly, your listening engine is going to help you tweak only one thing. The goal is to get insights from all calls, group them, decide what's working, and scale it. Scale it into all of your other activities. That's the key piece, because you have to find winning patterns and scale them. So I want to leave you lastly with one line: is you have to keep listening and keep evolving with every call, because listening to your customers and kind of like, building a muscle memory for that in your entire org with the tool like JustCall IQ, kind of what it gives you is the context, the intelligence of all the customer calls gets seeped into every activity, and it kind of elevates and evolves your entire CX engine, be it product, be it sales, be it marketing. And you're kind of taking a very proactive approach here, not reactive, right? You're not going to send NPS surveys later. Nobody wants to fill any more forms now. So you have to glean this intelligence and keep communicating it for your product roadmap, for your marketing channels roadmap, for your sales growth, and even for your customers to know, like, okay, I'm listening to you. What else do you want me to do? And this is what will make your go to market engine very agile and keep growing. And that's all I have for you today in chapter 1, listening, and why it's very crucial for your go to market motion. Now, I'm happy to take more questions from the audience. Okay. How do you influence calls if recorded? So I think, Ahmed, I think that's why I used a phrase of real time and post call. So you have both kinds of analysis. The calls are recorded, which will help you glean intelligence from a post recorded time frame. But even during calls, right, live calls, you have those sentiment analysis. And let's say an account executive is making a call, and there are some patterns which they're not responding properly. Alerts are sent to the managers and VPs. They can chip into the call, they can whisper, they can instruct, so you can influence the call as it happens. How do you balance clients needs listening with market feet? uh, so I think it's a I think that's a good question. The reason is, see, your client is a subset of the market, right? So now product market fit is definitely a thing that you do very early on. Let's say, like, I'm going to talk about a couple of scenarios here and walk you through this. Let's say the first example is somebody who's just building a product. They have not even got a single customer. They want to know this. The CEO would be talking to the customer and kind of giving a demo or listening to this, right? And if this call is getting recorded, right, let's say they do it 5-6 times, and that sentiment analysis can be captured to know, like, okay, this customer talked about this, but maybe in that heat of the moment you're not capturing that. So when you do that for 10 calls, you're kind of getting an idea, like, what is the customer actually talking about value, and am I giving it? And this is a very small use case for establishing product market fit, right? But let's say the same company grows, they've got 100 customers, now they have 5 sales guys, and 5 support people. Now this needs a scalable infrastructure where you have to listen to every client like the way you did earlier, and that becomes a scalable approach to tackle that both during call and post call. So you know that, okay, this is the customer who's coming, and now you have one product market fit, but the messaging fit might be different, and that's becoming a scalable motion. Now you're saying, okay, I used to say this to my first 10 customers, but now for the next 100 there is some variation. Maybe they want a little bit more value that I'm not articulating, and that's where the messaging gap comes in. So you have to align product with market first, and then the messaging with market, and that's where listening kind of helps. Thanks, Jermaine, for the question. Um, how do you scale conversations, Amir Kadri? So I think, like, uh, it's kind of, I'm building on the previous answer here. Let's say somebody, a company is having 100 customer conversations, right, with only like one sales rep. That's something which you can kind of, like, do it with a tool like JustCall like you, or you can just take notes and do it. But let's say you are making like 100 sales calls per rep, and you have 20 sales reps, and then you have a lot of support reps. So that's the scale. And now when you have to do a scale like this, what do you need? You need a dashboard where you want to know, okay, I'm getting 1,000 or 2,000 calls in sales, and 2,000 calls in support, so 4,000 calls. What do I get insights for every day or every week? And that's where this dashboard kind of presents to you. So you can, there are some insights which are kind of human, right? You know, the tone is loud, harsh, there's a pause, there's a lot of talking and less listening. All that can be kind of, like, coded. There are some things which are very business specific. It might be different for a tech company compared to a B2B SaaS company, some of the phrase words, keywords. So you can add all of that in the engine, and all of these alerts will start popping up in your dashboard. So you can see the status for all these 4,000 uh, calls, be it sales and support, kind of reflecting in one dashboard, and instantly you can know what's happening. Now, this is for a CEO's view. They know what's happening in all these 4,000 calls. Are we saying the right things? What is the top occurring competitor? What is the top concern people are raising? What is the intent? What is the moment, right? How many calls start well, end down? So all these alerts start popping up. Now, this is great for learning and improving next month. But let's say you want to see it for the first day and improve the second day. So that's real time in call. Your sales manager, director of sales, director of support, they get these alerts. They can go and improve those calls immediately. And so that is a approach where you scale it, because it's not left to the whims and fantasies of any one rep, right? You want to normalize it. You want to gently get everybody to a peak performance level. You want to codify it, and that's what this tool can do. And we will cover more of this in our next chapters, how all these tools sits together. But today we want to talk about listening. Scaling will happen because once the listening muscle is built, then you will go to learning, and that's the next chapter. How are you going to learn, and how are you going to take it across the organizations with those dashboards, insights? How do you improve every rep to be a super rep? And that's the kind of what we're going to talk about next. So I think there's a lot of questions. I'm going to take one by one. I think Jermaine has another question, which is, how do you know you've done enough listening? Oh, there is no end to that. The reason is, there are customers always coming to you with, it's like you're asking me, like, how much of growth is enough? It's never enough. You want to keep growing. You want to keep getting more customers. You want to keep selling more to your existing customers. You want to build new products in adjacent areas. You want to enter new markets. So it's always growing, but you can define it for a particular ICP. Have I cornered every use case? Have I given enough uh, thought to the messaging? Do all of them kind of, like, reciprocate to that messaging? That means that ICP is covered. But even in the same ICP, as the company size grows, they might have different feature requests. They might have different needs. All, so there is, I mean, in the just like growth, listening is a continuous process. You need to keep evolving with it. Chris is the next question. How do you differentiate customer success call signals from all call sales signals? Actually, Chris, that's a good question, because like if you use if your teams, like let's say success team, sales team, support team, all use the same thing, how are you differentiating? I think the differentiation comes in the nature of the call, which is kind of a function of the team itself, and also what you want each call to adhere to. So, as I said earlier, there are some human signals which are consistent in all calls, like across industries, across regions. You will know a pause means something, right? If somebody is talking more than the other person, you know that's a problem. So these are some things that you can codify, but it's kind of generic across any call. These are common basic traits. There are some which are dependent on an industry, like for example, like an ed tech call, or a b2b SaaS, a logistics company. All them will have different calls, different key phrases, different mentions. Now even within that, right, let's say a sales call will talk more about pricing, will talk more about uh, demos, the competitor names, they'll talk about feature requests, right? These you can find some patterns, you can have intent signals built on that, and you can learn. Whereas a success call will be a little bit more about vision, QBRs. We can identify those phrases. Okay, what is your plan for the next 3 months? What is your plan for the next 6 months? Are you using your product properly? Why is the usage drop? This will never be in a sales call. A support call kind of will have a little bit overlap with the success call, but it will be more about issue resolution. It'll be about, I'm facing this problem currently, help me with that. So you can codify it. You can codify some of these engines, but the rest you can, the IQ engine will help you build it, and it'll keep throwing up. So that's the beauty of an engine like this, is because the tool is also helping you listen. So it'll tell you, hey, in the last month, 40% of calls had this particular keyword, which is something which you have not considered. So you have to consider it now. You have to be like, okay, it makes sense. And anyway, you will have the team set up, so it will start grouping those calls in a particular behavior to track. And that's why you can differentiate. So some will be inputs from the company and the team and the management, some will be inputs from the tool itself, so you can differentiate them. So I think those are very good questions by Jermaine and Chris. Definitely very interesting, because you have to think about listening is a very key thing that you have to make part of your GTM engine. You have to build that muscle, and that muscle is crucial because it kind of provides context to all teams, whether you are in sales, success, support, marketing. It doesn't matter. It is a customer-facing team. That's why it's important. Um, so Alice has raised another question: is what is the easiest way to implement listening today? Uh, I think the easiest way is to plug a tool. Which now this is where I think a lot of people get confused. They say, "Okay, I'm going to just get a tool to transcribe." That's only adding more to your problem, because you want to be efficient in this. You don't want to, like, okay, you've recorded all calls, you've transcribed them. What are you going to do with that, right? Are you going to sit and read like 1,000 calls data? You can't. It's not going to happen. And that's kind of like, moving the problem from listening 1,000 calls to reading 1,000 calls. It's not going to help. So you need a tool which will transcribe, which will condense it, which will give you alerts, which will, when it will be very flexible, so that you can give signals and say, hey, listen, I think these are the 5 phrases that I would want to see if it has occurred. If it's not occurred, it's a problem for my sales call. So that is a way to track it. Then we can build on it. We can build on moment, sentiment. You can talk about what are the most common things, and you can keep tracking it. And that's the starting point, that's the baseline. And that's where a tool like JustCall like you helps you, because you can plug it in. You need a tool which is plug and play. You plug it in, you listen to 1,000 calls, 500 calls, automatically insight starts coming out on the other side, and actionable insights. You don't want a tool which tells you, okay, you made 1,000 calls, all were 3 minutes to 4 minutes in length. Great. I mean, what are you going to do with the insight, right? It's a stupid insight. You need actionable insight which will improve every call. If you feed 100 calls, It tells you these 100 calls, whatever phrases you mentioned, 68% of calls had them, 32% didn't have them. So you know immediately, like uh, one in every three call that happens next will not have those. So you have to improve them. So that's how you have to look for it, and that's the baseline. Don't go into getting a transcription tool. Don't go into getting a tool which will give you, like, and ask yourself, what is the insight that you're giving me that I can apply in the very next call? And the tool should do the heavy lifting with AI, and that's the baseline. Don't go anything below that. So I think, we're running out of time, but I think we have maybe time for one question if somebody has. But this has been a good session to talk about, like, why listening is an important part. So you should stay tuned for our next chapters, where we're going to talk about the other chapters. We have listening, we have learning, we have, talking to customers where they are, how to transform your team into a super team. These are the tools, because this is how your go to market motion is going to work. Because for startups today, whether you're a founder, one person, or whether you have a 5 people, 100 people sales team, your whole sales, marketing, growth, success motions are becoming very tight. So you have to make the knowledge, like, permeate all departments. They should all have context, and that's a very, very key piece I want you to have before you sign off. Yeah, it's pretty late, definitely. But I'm happy to. Okay, Ellis, have a question. And what's your best advice for companies today if they can do one thing? See, I think this, since this chapter is about listening, I'll stick to listening. But once you finish all the 5 chapters, you will get a better sense of how to improve your go-to-market. In this particular thing, I think today we live in a world where we have smartphones. We have a lot of heavy lifting done by technology, by cars, TVs, right? Get a tool that will do the heavy lifting. That will be the line. Get a tool that will kind of give you things on a platter. That should be your expectation baseline. Should say, I plug it in, I get insights to improve my success call, improve my sales call, improve my next call. That's the baseline. And find a tool. It might be a little, expensive depending on how you look at your budget, or it might be cheap, because the moment you see, like, okay, I'm going to spend this, I'm going to make so much 3x 5x return, it's not going to be cheap. It is going to be very cheap. It's not going to be expensive, sorry. So I think that's your first step. Get a tool which will do the heavy lifting and gives you insights on a platter, nothing less than that. And you've been, like, good. I think there's a lot of good questions, and any other question, please, you can find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a question, I will definitely respond. Thank you so much.